Hello everyone, my name is Cyrus Jansen. I want to welcome you back to my YouTube channel and I want to welcome you to the very first video of 2021. Now for those of you that have been following the channel for the past year, you know that I make weekly vlogs about China and its role in society today, and as an American expat that has lived in China for many years, I am always looking at this relationship between the United States and China. Now, one of the biggest events between these two countries over the past 2 years has been the case of Mrs. Meng Wanzhou. Now, Meng Wanzhou is the CFO of Huawei Technologies, the #1 smartphone producer in the world. Now, she was arrested right here in Vancouver, Canada on December 1st, 2018. And in today's episode, we're essentially going to be answering the question, will Meng Wanzhou be released from Canada? Will she be able to avoid extradition to the United States and be able to return back to China in 2021? Now today's video is actually a collaboration between Alex from Reportfy Media and myself, where we bring in Richard Kurland. He is one of Canada's top immigration lawyers and is an absolute authority on this subject. This video is going to be amazing. I'm so excited to bring it to you in 2021. Everybody, let's get started.
I'm here with Richard Kurland and Cyrus Jansen. Gentlemen, you can introduce yourselves.
Oh, very well. I'm a lawyer and policy analyst. My goodness, for 30 years, I've been following and assisting in the development of immigration law and policy. And I've been following, of course, this particular geopolitical judicial case from the get-go.
Fantastic. Yeah, everyone, my name is Cyrus. You'll know me from my YouTube channel where we, basically make vlogs about China, its role in society, and, I'm actually currently based in Vancouver, Canada, and this is a huge case. As we know, it's these two world superpowers, United States, my home country, I'm originally from Florida, United States and China going to battle, right here in our backyard here in Vancouver, Canada, right downtown at the British Columbia Supreme Court. So this is a huge profile case. It's been going on for over 2 years now. And I think we're finally getting some headway, and I think we might see a result coming here in 2021. On the next steps. And I think I can't wait to get into this discussion today with you, Richard. Thank you for joining us on the show today.
Honor and a pleasure.
Yeah. And I think it was important, Richard, why we had you on the show today. I mean, Cyrus and I have done a few live shows, and a lot of people keep going back to this case. Guys, what do you know more? Can you tell us more about this case? And, I reached out to Cyrus about 2 weeks ago and I said, we have to get an expert in immigration law here on this show. And lo and behold, we have one here with us today. My first question, I know it's going to sound a bit odd, but did our Canadian authorities kidnap this woman?
Oh, sorry for the outburst. Kidnap might be a tad strong, if not absolutely incorrect. What seemed to have happened here, my own take, knowing as I do the policies, procedures at Vancouver International Airport, when it comes to this sort of thing, as well as the usual political dynamics in Ottawa, that this, rather than a kidnapping, I think this was a huge mistake. See, what happened here, Canada was in its pre-election year. It's a minority government, and the usual rules when there's a high-profile case touching Vancouver International Airport is that the minister that looks after the border officers gets a heads up because political. However, in the pre-election year, you get a one-up. Instead of the minister's office, it goes to the prime minister's office, which is the locus of miscalculation in this case. Put yourself into the shoes of what they call the PMO, prime minister's office. It's Friday night. The plane's arriving Saturday. So between Friday and Saturday, who's on call at the PMO? It's young people who made the political decision, I suspect, that this case would well position Prime Minister Trudeau on the world stage as a global peacemaker, negotiating between Beijing and Washington as a statesman broker. What great political capital to harvest during a pre-election year. World stage, no political opposition possible, yet a bounty of political capital for the prime minister. What a miscalculation. These individuals, I suspect, had no clue who they were arresting. And that's the root of this. Followed up by the free trade negotiation, Ottawa, Washington, where Washington taps on the shoulder, throw us a bone, do us a gimme, keep this case alive. We may see our way to some concessions for you on free trade. So that's the 1-2 hit. That's the genesis for this, in my view.
Cyrus, over to you.
Yeah, I mean, I guess one of the things that we really want to establish is was this really politically motivated? As far as I know that for example, Donald Trump has come out and he has said so there's some talks in the Oval Office of him stating Meng Wanzhou, she is the Ivanka Trump of China. I really want to use her as a pawn in this grand scheme. And so I think one of the things that's really interesting is I know that in the extradition laws, if, for instance, the minister does deem this to be a political case, that she was actually being arrested, for political reasons, they can throw that case out. Do you believe in that as well? Am I right in saying that this, really is politically motivated and therefore has grounds to be thrown out?
Well, if I may, I've been sitting in that court.
Yeah,
I've been hearing the evidence, the testimony from both sides of this matter, Crown and defense, and it's not supposition now. 2 years later, there's evidence. Not supposition, maybe I feel that it could be. There's solid evidence in the form of an affidavit from the White House counsel, not anyone, the White House counsel, saying that President Trump was willing to use Ms. Meng as a trade pawn in the negotiations with China. That is shocking. In addition, there is the public statements of President Trump, not behind closed doors, boldly in the bright light of the public, stating that he'll fix the case to the effect if it will help in the negotiations.
Yeah.
So in Canada, normally, if you see that sort of thing, the path taken is for an improper purpose. It's an abusive process to further not just the political agenda or priorities of Washington, but to further trade negotiations. It's akin to a trade hostage, which is why I come back to the kidnapping deal. It's not kidnapping.
Yeah.
It's an abuse of the extradition process, in my view.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I don't think it's necessarily kidnapping, but I think it's definitely. I mean, like you said, Trump's made it very clear this is 100% politically motivated, and I mean, Trump speaks his mind. That is one thing as American president. He's very much the most American president. He wants to be heard. He's not afraid to voice his opinion, and he's certainly let the cat out of the bag on that one. Really, his whole motivation behind this.
He did, and just to interject, I'm sorry to do this, but
no problem.
Just for full disclosure, I'm both Canadian and American. And my mom's first postings were at the United States embassies in the Middle East and Europe.
Nice.
And so I do have a kind of a background in this stuff. I won't even start with what my dad was doing. But I think you're on the right track there.
Okay.
Well, I use that shock word because the word that Canadians are using with the Chinese authorities is pretty much along that line, that we have kidnapped 2 Canadian individuals, or China has kidnapped 2 Canadian individuals, thrown them in prison, and the key has been thrown away. Now, normally in these cases, Richard, from watching, I have a financial background, and I know through the financial crisis, a lot of things were going on in the U.S., and the Department of Justice was quite active, and it started going after companies. One like HSBC, who had some dealings with the Mexican cartel, and they did some, we'll say, rather bad things, and they got fined for the tune of about $1.9 billion. Now, they arrest the company. They're not grabbing bodies here. And as you've said before, So why didn't they go after the company here? Why did they go after the individual?
You're definitely on the right path. And what I like to do is to follow the money. History has shown if you have the wallet, the mind will follow and the direction will follow. So what was really going on? I tracked HSBC's payment for Washington lobbyists over a 6-year period. Now, if you're not aware, HSBC doesn't have a stellar track record when it comes to obeying laws regarding banking, including anti-money laundering, anti-terrorist provisions, fraud, violating trade sanctions with unsavory countries, and they have a wonderful working relationship with regimes in Myanmar, Sudan, and North Korea, and Iran. So at the time. And so what happened? What was different? Well, yes, HSBC had to pay well over $2 billion in fines for its business dealings, including violation of the Iranian trade sanctions imposed by the United States. At the time, HSBC was kind of on parole with Washington. One more straw would break the camel's back, and the United States would pull the license to engage in banking on American territory. So up comes Huawei. And HSBC signed, as part of its deal with the Department of Justice, a promise to help DOJ, Department of Justice in Washington. What was on the agenda? Huawei. And
Cooperation.
Cooperation. But here's the telling point. 2 things. One, in terms of following the money, for some reason in 2017, remember she was arrested in 2018, the HSBC doubled up the number of lobbyists and was paying millions of dollars to work with directly the Department of Justice. What did they get for their money? If HSBC were to be prosecuted for its dealings with Iran through Huawei or anyone else, it loses its license. So why not throw someone under the bus to gain 2 strategic advantages? Delay, because they can't go against HSBC until this thing in Canada is finished. And the other one is someone to blame. Oh, it's not us. We were duped by Ms. Meng. And the key evidence, the touchstone, the bedrock foundation of this case is a PowerPoint presentation to HSBC around 2012, 2013, something like
2013,
that. That's the one. And what happened was this HSBC PowerPoint presentation gift was sent to Washington. You're going to love this. And to justify the extradition request with Canada, Washington gave Canada a copy of this PowerPoint presentation, but it left off some of the presentation, like the exculpatory parts.
Yeah.
Nice.
And so the role of HSBC here is at the core, the center. You're absolutely right when you say, well, if they're not going after human beings at HSBC, how is it they're targeting Ms. Meng? And that I think that line of questioning would occur if there is an additional line of questioning in the months to come. So this thing is a mess, not from the political decision, but before that, from the American request itself, flawed.
Yeah. You know, Richard, you have a lot of experience in immigration law here. I mean, she had traveled to many other countries that were on this extradition list with America. Why Canada?
Because that's also came up in evidence in the last few rounds. And I knew it, but I wanted to hear it from the intelligence officer directly. Someone, somehow, 10 days before her arrival, knew of a flight reservation through Canada. Now, the evidence, the testimony showed that Ms. Meng was under surveillance by the Americans while in the Hong Kong airport. And when you connect that dot with the, Canada is informed by Americans that a flight reservation has been made, that led a very senior intelligence supervisor in Ottawa to contact the person concerned in intelligence / enforcement in Vancouver International Airport on what happens if a person is in transit. Give me the laydown. And then you see 10 days later, the operation unfold. So I don't know. It's quite interesting.
You know, Cyrus and I have had this conversation about, we'll call it the gray area or the transit area. I mean, what really went down there in Vancouver? I mean, to me, we've dissected this. We've gone through it step by step. My understanding, and traveling to many countries, over 100 now, is when I'm transferring through a country or transiting through a country, I never actually go down and see CBSA in other countries. I never go down and see, I never enter the country. I'm in I guess it's kind of like a no man's land. And we're getting two sides to it. Some of the, we're getting always referred back to the Edward Snowden situation, where technically he wasn't arrested because he didn't really enter Russians' territory. So, I mean, maybe you can enlighten us. Was this proper protocol on what they did?
Well, there you go. I mean, now you're touching the very delicate belly button of the case.
Yeah.
And I can tell you who had to do what. You see, the court ordered in British Columbia the immediate arrest of Ms. Meng. And so immediate means
immediate.
Immediate. So the defense asked RCMP and CBSA, Royal Canadian Mounted Police, Canada Border Services Agency, the people at the airport for law enforcement, the same question. Do you have the power to arrest someone at that spot? Yes, RCMP. Yes, CBSA. Okay, and I'll boil this down. What's the difference if CBSA arrests or you arrest? Well, once someone is arrested, the charter rights are invoked. This is a constitutional Supreme Law of Canada deal that locks in right to counsel, locks in right to silence. And when you're arrested, they have to inform you of these rights, and you can choose to say nothing, wait for the lawyers, or not. But if RCMP takes custody, arrests Ms. Meng, they knew, because their testimony said so, that charter rights would be invoked. She'd clam up. They wouldn't get what they want. However, in Canada, if the Canada Border Service Agency people take you, you're not under arrest. In immigration, here's the secret sauce. There's no charter rights when you're being interviewed for immigrations and customs purposes.
Right.
What about Section 8? Section 8, the illegal.
That's very nice. Have a nice day. It doesn't.
Not happening.
Not happening.
Rich, I've got a question. What about now? I believe with this arrest warrant, though, it was for an immediate arrest. So, I mean, I think, obviously that means that as soon as they have the opportunity, you need to go in and arrest her. And so I think, there was a delay in there where, as you say, okay, if she's being questioned by CBSA, they have the right to say, what's your purpose here in Canada? Are you carrying devices? I mean, you can do that. But if you have an arrest warrant waiting for her on the other end of that, I think that's where we're really getting into trouble, right? Because
there you go. And so the position of the RCMP was, it's our interpretation of arrest is not immediate. It's as soon as practically possible. And then they were asked, well, if the CBSA interview took a couple days, would that be immediate? And RCMP, yeah. And so, okay, that's their position. I don't think the court will buy into it. Yeah. But it did kind of come out that RCMP, CBSA both had conversations, and the higher-ups, how to prevent this charter lock. Because what was the priority? Remember, in the transit off the jetway, there were like 5, some of them armed, big officers surrounding Ms. Meng.
Right.
And they could have arrested her, sent her to Immigration Customs, adjourned that interview, and then picked it up another time. But what was the priority? And this is a shocker number 2. Several Crown witnesses confirmed the priority was at the behest of the FBI. Get the cell phones, get the passcodes. And no surprise to see, after almost 3 hours of interrogation by CBSA, ostensibly for Immigration Customs, she gave over those passcodes and literally a couple minutes later, put under arrest by the RCMP because they had the phones, they had the codes. Bye-bye. That's our priority done.
Yeah, but I mean, go ahead, Cyrus.
I was just going to say, it's just interesting, because I've been down to the courthouse as well, Richard, to watch some of the testimony, and it just seems so. Yeah, it just seemed like the RCMP, the CBSA, they're just so disorganized in their presentation, and it's like, well, we couldn't arrest her on the plane because we're worried about a security threat. What if she's had knives? And it's like, come on, really? Like, you think this executive's going to be having weapons on the plane? And like you said, I mean, you have these big officers there. You could have easily taken down this woman if you wanted to. And then even the thing with how the passcodes got transferred over. I mean, it just seems really odd to me that they knew who this was. I mean, and they admitted, okay, we had to Wikipedia who this was, but who this is a high profile person that you've just arrested. This is it doesn't take a rocket science to read Wikipedia and realize this is a really high profile person. Okay, go ahead and write these passcodes down. I don't understand how that document, it was, and the officer's like, it was a devastating mistake on my part. How does that happen? How do you possibly give the passcodes over on accident? I mean, I just don't buy that at all. I mean,
this is about loyalty to the team, in my view.
Okay.
And sometimes you got to take one for the team.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that's what's happening, because that would be wrong.
Right.
It could be their best recollection, but the point is that there was improper disclosure of information, improper seizure.
Correct.
And they cannot explain how FBI got hold of what the FBI wanted. That's a serious problem. In addition, there is shocker number 3, evidence of intent of malice. You see, you're exactly right.
That's what I was waiting for.
And here we go. And it came out in the testimony of retired very high level in the intelligence world of an instruction provided by video conference to the people on the floor in Vancouver International that were oversighting this to not take notes, to gather information, but don't write anything down because it may be exposed under access to information or court proceedings, which is 180 degrees contrary to the guidelines and internal procedures of cases, and especially high-profile cases. So they knew they were contravening their own rules, policies, guidelines on note-taking, and that's intent. So I just don't see how the Crown's going to survive this challenge. There was instruction from on high to operationalize what they did, and it's for the court to determine whether the accumulation of these dots and shockers will lead to an abuse of process determination.
Why the RCMP acted the way they acted, why the CBSA gathered the information the way they did, the collusion with the FBI. I mean, these 3 together. I'll give you a scenario here. Tim Cook gets on an airplane. He wants to go to Australia to have a nice weekend with his family over the Christmas holidays. He stopped in Vietnam. The Vietnamese, they wait on the the airport, where you're departing the airplane. There's a couple of border agents there from Vietnam saying, Tim, hey, come have a coffee with us for 3 hours. We just want to chat with you for a bit. And Tim, while you're with us, could you just maybe hand us your iPad and your iPhone and your MacBook? And, just so we feel comfortable, Tim, just give us the passcodes. And, oh, yeah, by the way, after we're done here, we're going to give you over to the Vietnamese police, who are going to try to extradite you to Russia. That is a scenario that is almost what we're living here. And this is really disturbing to see the Canadians behave like this. And what I'm more curious about is, with the RCMP or the CBSA, have any of them committed perjury here?
No, I don't think so. No way. They're very careful. They watch their words. They build in wiggle words. They have, I guess, monogram T-shirts that say, "I have no present recollection."
Right.
No.
Oliver North line.
Fair enough.
It's bad, but not criminal. I don't think they cross the line to that extent.
Okay.
But then again, and my last thing, Cyrus, we have Ben Chang sitting in Macau, who's refusing to testify. How does that happen? One of the main lead guys on this is, incognito. How do you get around that? I mean, isn't that helpful for the defense team?
Well, yeah. I mean, it's useful. I mean, that often happens, but this is not like All Good Men or whatever it is with Tom Cruise and Mark.
A Few Good Men. A Few Good Men.
That's A Few Good Men. So Mark
it's a good movie.
On, but it doesn't matter in this case.
Okay.
So but the thing is that our Prime Minister did a couple missteps in this case. And I tried to correct that over a month unsuccessfully. Prime Minister advised Parliament that he couldn't intervene, Canada couldn't intervene because of rule of law, because they can't intervene in a court case. And legally, it's 100% wrong. He reversed himself about 6-8 weeks later, a couple months in, when I pointed out, as did our media, after receiving enough emails from me, I guess, that Section 23 of the Extradition Act allows a minister to shut down a case any time. Yes,
absolutely.
You don't interfere in a particular judicial case normally, but the Extradition Act literally, plainly provides exactly that contingency by a minister, not the Prime Minister. So the Chinese government, I have to say, was absolutely correct when it requested Canada to review its options, and was absolutely correct in proceeding politically to request the exercise of power, political power, under Section 23 of the Extradition Act. So I don't know. This is not the best case.
So Richard, I think we've seen Meng's lawyers, over the past 2 years, obviously present a lot of facts, and really we've dissected this case. What is your opinion based on her legal team? Have they done a good job, presenting the facts and representing her, and trying to get the result that they want? Stellar.
And I think the fictional movie script boils down to this, which I entitled POTUS and the PM, because incoming President Joe Biden, the first trip of an American president, traditionally with one exception, is to Ottawa. Yeah. And typically around Chinese New Year.
Okay.
So that means, here's the conversation from Prime Minister Trudeau. Joe, congratulations. By the way, this Ms. Meng extradition thing, how are we going to play it? You can blame it on your predecessor and new information and disclosure for the past 2 years, and just pull the request to extradite. It's over. You have your agreement. And, Joe, by the way, if you don't, Canada, because we've paid with 2 years of economic sanctions, we've got our 2 Canadians detained, we're going to pull it based on Section 23 of the Extradition Act. So how do you want to play this, Joe? You can reap political capital. You don't. We'll pull the plug ourselves. What's better for you? And I think that February conversation is pivotal, particularly since the new vice president grew up in Canada.
Okay, yeah.
He's a graduate of Montreal High School.
Since you brought up the two Michaels, I mean, you've used a term before, and I think it's rather interesting, and maybe a lot of people haven't heard this term, but you say that the two Michaels are tested Canadian diplomats.
Yes, I was being diplomatic myself, I think. These
Can you explain that?
Yeah, these individuals knew full well, I think, of the risks they were taking at all times pre this case and during this case. Their background includes public service, one way or the other. They were privy during their respective careers to links, let's put it that way, with Canada's Trade and Diplomatic Corps and liaison officers. So they are not without training and resources. Fortunately, their training and resources have proven to uphold their good nature and their character. And to date, as far as we know, they're in good condition. What happens after this? My thoughts are that hopefully it's the same money path that was taken when the Canadian ambassador posted to Tehran help rescue the American hostages.
That's right.
And brought them to Canada. And he, for 20 years after, was on the speaking circuit, pulling in fair compensation. And the two Michaels hopefully will access that kind of revenue stream.
Interesting take.
Another thing that I would like to bring up, I mean, we've started to see that the RCMP have run into a little bit of problems here from the top. I know that this really isn't related to this case, but one of the top intelligence agents, Cameron Ortiz, for the RCMP, is currently in jail right now. And I mean, doesn't this really hurt the credibility of our Royal Canadian Mounted Police when we're seeing headlines like this? Are you familiar with that?
Oh, case? Yeah. But nah, you gotta watch her stuff. Because what happens is that a lot of guys in that office, they're no fool. And when they see the screen door in the submarine, very often, for as long as they can, they put false shipments of information through that screen door. So this works both sides. And the RCMP still, it's a pretty good organization. It's got oversight. CBSA, zero oversight. Let me put it this way. In Canada, all the intelligence agencies, the police forces, including RCMP, have independent monitoring, control, oversight. One and only one organization doesn't, CBSA.
Wow.
And so they can do what they want to do, and there's no boss, there's no parent, there's no one knocking on their door. So that may be a change after this case.
So how should Canadians, like, I mean, you know, as we're talking about immigration law, one is how should Canadians prepare themselves if they're traveling to China in the near future? And also hearing about the powers that the CBSA have, how should individuals traveling into Canada maybe prepare themselves in case they're in a situation like this?
Exactly.
What advice can you give?
That's brilliant, because I tell people all the time, first and foremost, don't travel with your real laptop or your real cell phone. And don't keep stuff in the cloud, or have a kill switch that's automatic when you push in a certain passcode, if there is a passcode for that. And that's coming into Canada, and also traveling overseas. In terms of arrests, yeah, that's something that I think Canada, China, other countries need to circle up and discuss, not going back to medieval times when nation states claim citizens of other countries to further their interests. There's no place for that today. And if we can get some kind of consensus all over that that's not what's going to happen, that would be a nice positive outcome. But it's like, I look at it this way. It's like a long, successful marriage. You know, you're going to have the occasional hiccup, bad day, argument, but they get resolved over time, and both parties become productive and benefit from the
But,
long-standing relationship. That's what I see.
We're dealing with a pretty big company here. This wouldn't be like a scenario like the Alstrom case, with Frederick, the French guy that was arrested, and they actually broke that company up. And a lot of people were saying, well, maybe this is because GE was involved. I mean, is that the intention here a little bit to maybe, rake Huawei over the coals here and see if they're going to, I mean, Cyrus, you know a lot about this. Yeah. I mean, you've been following this Huawei story about if it's not convincing other countries to not use their products, to then outright say don't deal with them. I mean, where are we going with this? Is this just Meng, or is this Huawei in general? That's where I'm. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'll comment on that. Just, I mean, I do believe that we see that a lot with the United States as far as, this has really been the policy over the last 4 years with Donald Trump, as he's been moving very much against China. But we saw this over the last year, especially. I mean, it was first, TikTok is a national security threat. Oh, sorry, Huawei was first, but I mean, it's Huawei, it's TikTok, it's now WeChat. Okay, we need to ban Alibaba. We need to, all of these things. I mean, we have Secretary of State Michael Pompeo coming out and saying that, Americans, when you have parents, Chinese parents at your student teacher meetings, these are spies of the Communist Party. Let's close down the Chinese consulate in Houston. It's been there. It's been open since 1979, but there are spies in there. I mean, it's just one after the other. These continuous hits against China.
Yeah,
I mean, we know very
full on.
I mean, for example, I mean, we're in social media. I use TikTok a lot. I'm on the Chinese version, Douyin, which is very popular, obviously in China. But what the big thing is, it's amazing. I mean, TikTok has been able to market themselves and become successful better than Facebook and Google. And I mean, that's shocking for America to see that, hey, somebody in Beijing has figured out the algorithm and how to really create this engaging platform. It's actually a national security threat. And I think what was interesting is you saw they did a poll in America, and it was something, like over 70% didn't actually realize it was Chinese until, the recent news. They just, I thought it was American. And then it's like, well, now that you know it's Chinese, do you care? Well, no, not really. I just like TikTok. I'm going to still, use it. And so I think there's definitely, an element in that involved. I mean, we know, obviously, Huawei is dominating 5G. They're the only, really the only company that has that technology that are just so far advanced. I mean, China is 5G all over the country now. Shenzhen, the entire city, is 5G wall to wall. I mean, they're moving forward very fast in China with the 5G. They've recently just launched a 6G satellite into space to already start working on the next plan. So, by the time America catches up with 5G, I'm sure China's already going to have 6G in play. So, yeah, that's my opinion. I think there's definitely an element for sure involved there.
And I'm not far from that because when I look at it that way, I think everybody's right, everybody's wrong. And here's what I mean. Because, look, if China has the best price, if China has the best technical product, how are the other guys going to compete with that? Even assuming that China's subsidizing or financing one thing or the other. They can play the security card. Just don't get sucked in to this national security argument for not engaging a service because everyone does it. The Americans do it, UK does it, we do it, China does it. So it's who's going to be reading your stuff. It's not to the exclusion of others. So that's the context. And if, in the negotiations for dominance in the communications sector, they have to play the security card, well, it's a card to play. If China plays its cards of price and best product, great. But where you draw the line is in picking up the humans. That's just
absolutely.
So that's what I mean, but no one's hands are clean. The U.S. is not denied it engages in that activity, nor have the other Western countries. So, and by the way, on the spy thing, it's actually safer in the context of threat analysis between nation states to have, believe it or not, spies in these countries. What's a better scenario? Not knowing what the enemy's going to do, think, or react, or knowing a little bit of how they're going to make their decisions. So ironically, it's safer to have agents from both countries in both countries at all times.
And I think it's funny because, sorry, Alex, to interrupt. Just a couple of things. Number one, It's true. I mean, I love it. It's like, does China have spies around the world? Absolutely. I mean, what do we think America's? What is the CIA? I mean, that is that is. I mean, we have people all over the world, and I agree. I totally agree with you. I mean, it's just kind of I think we have to accept that there's going to be spies from the UK, from Germany, from Australia. I mean, major countries are going to have these different networks around the world, and that is part of just how the world works. And interesting enough, I did want to mention. I saw earlier this week. Germany has actually came out and to announce that they are going to proceed and have a provisional document that is going to allow Huawei to potentially to establish that 5G network in Germany. So they're really the first Western country that has come out and said, like, we're going to look for a way to work with Huawei and really break away from that pressure from America, because we know, for example, the UK had received a tremendous amount of pressure from Trump saying, look, you need to align with us, ban Huawei. And then we saw the flip side. Okay, we're going to ban Huawei because it's a national security threat. So we're going to give them till 2027, a full 7 years from now, to remove that hardware. But if it's national security, why are we wasting 7 years?
And I'm going to build fast on that. Is that what's the Canadian position? It's schizophrenic. On the one, from in the intelligence community, you have the technical specialist called CSE out here, and they say, okay, look. It's not a threat because we have toys to deal with this. The other branch of the intelligence community, something like CSIS, would say, no, it's a threat because it's part of a larger package of influence. And so technically, there's not a problem here. You can have toys to defeat toys. But for other reasons, they don't want this happening. So I go with the technical guys because it's a technical issue, security. But if you want to envelop it in political or economic, then you try to keep these guys out, or you exchange a decision or not making a decision with a like-minded country for a wish list. So you tell the Americans, we're not going to decide anything, or we may say no, but what's in it for us?
But here's the problem: it's actually backfired. The latest trading with the United States, we used to have a deficit. The Americans had a deficit. It was between 50 to 55 billion a month, and it's risen to 75 billion now. So that means that they are actually even importing more product from China. So, the strategy there, I think, to break China on this has kind of maybe not gone the way that they anticipated. I mean, is that going to, make America even more aggressive? Are we going to see more of these Huawei scenarios coming up? More bodies being thrown in jail?
No. It's a one-off. And what I do see down the road is a policy of dispersion of trade away from China towards regional partners, regional players in the area, to reduce reliance on China. At the same time, I see the Chinese domestic economy rising to the level where foreign trade takes on less and less importance, given the domestic product growth within PRC. And that bodes well. So the competition eventually will slide away from direct confrontation into more of a global approach. I think the stress points are no longer going to be as much economic as, unfortunately, military. As China begins to protect its global spinal cord of trade using the Navy, possibly bolstering its support and relations with strategically located nation states, which will raise hair in Washington undoubtedly. So less trade, more other things in future.
Right. Yeah. Good. So you feel that this case could possibly wrap up maybe in the first quarter of next year? You think that could be? Well, if you had a crystal ball, you think it?
Yeah, let's get some predictions. So if you had to predict
first, but I'll go with this one. So what I think happened, the critical point that most people didn't get, is when the court in British Columbia said to the parties that no, we're not going to have a decision on, let's say, the abuse of process argument or a charter argument in March.
Okay.
We're going to roll this forward to September, October, or end of year. And immediately I saw, oh my goodness. So in the President Prime Minister meeting in February, gone is the opportunity to say, let's wait until March to see what the court has to say. The court will make this go away. Yeah. Instead, the court, wittingly or otherwise, forced this decision on the politicians. No one wants this. I think President Biden will want a fresh page with China, a fresh page with Canada. It's opportune. Any adverse political capital is blamed on President T. And he gets this behind him on a go-forward basis, which will magically, coincidentally, by the time late summer, early fall rolls around, the economy will be post-COVID roaring. Double that up with the enhanced China trade that's backed up because of this particular case. So I think it's inevitable that the politicians will come to an appropriate decision that's in the best interest of their respective countries. And they will make this go away sooner than later.
I agree. I think. Oh, sorry. I just wanted to add one thing.
Fire away.
Yeah. I think it's great. Obviously, when Biden, has won the election, I think it's interesting as an American that's been living abroad now for close to 14 years now. I said, the best thing with Biden winning is that it instantly gave a huge increase in our global reputation around the world. And it's quite funny because obviously within America, Donald Trump is very popular. I mean, he won over 70 million votes in the popular vote. However, I am very optimistic in the future, for this America relationship, with Joe Biden having a bit more of a traditional president. I love the fact that Trudeau has reached out, and they've already talked about this. I mean, this is a huge case. I know Trudeau's very interested to get the two Michaels home, and this just makes Canada look so bad. I mean, let's just end this. Like you said, let's figure out how to get back on track and get these, our policies between America and China and Canada and China and U.S. and Canada, everybody back on track, and let's move forward. This is way too long.
What kind of, and this isn't really related now to our discussion today, but what kind of cases do you take on, or individuals do you take on to, what would be a normal month for you? What kind of people do you deal with? I mean, I'm very curious about it.
Well, I provided policy advice to governments, foreign and domestic. And the clients are kind of wholesale, not retail. So it's other lawyers around the world. You mentioned Edward Snowden. Edward Snowden has a lawyer, and I'm allowed to say that I'm his lawyer's lawyer. So those are the type of cases that I'll pull. On the cases like this one, I adore, but I won't wade in because I think I have more value to not hitch up to any party in this and try to see what I can do in my own little way to enhance a mediated solution that's in the best interest of all concerned. I'm also an old China hand since the late 80s. Nice. I think it was between 91 and 94, I was representing Politburo interests. And I've done a lot of stuff over there, been many times to the mainland. What other things do I do? So I'll generally look for policy fixes and enforcement solutions. I'm kind of enforcement guy. So I'll find ways for governments to raise money, enhance revenue collection schemes. And here's a good thing after this Meng case, just if you like the money part. British Columbia, and I worked on this for years, has put together a who owns what database of property. And many governments are now interested in this. And I suggested, even to folks in China, that you can make arrangements, and China has made arrangements with the Canada's Revenue Agency, to use this database, find out which citizens have memory omissions and forgot to declare to their respective home countries what they own, their income. And that's the model go forward. You find things that are commonality of interest, that enforce both the laws on both sides of the Pacific, or like I like to say, you double Pacific audit. Both sides of the Pacific, you audit the family or the person or the company. That's what's going to happen going forward. And yes, those are the type of things that I put together, and over time, governments seem to adopt. For regular cases, people contact me all the time, all over the world, and usually I can convince them they don't need a lawyer, and things end well that way.
But if somebody's up at 4 a.m. and they had a memory lapse and they forgot to declare a $20 million home in Shaughnessy, you probably get a phone call at 4 a.m, something like that.
Yeah, those families. Actually, I structure those families. I've dealt with over 7 billionaires and another like half dozen almost billionaires, which is in the same ballpark. And help them structure things so that they could be comfortable here in Canada while respecting at least the Canadian laws, and also to prevent Ms. Meng's situations from happening in the first place.
Nice.
Which is very important. You can structure things to provide you with options if you plan and strategize correctly and not violate the law of Canada.
Richard, why didn't Meng take a private jet to Mexico?
I think that's a family rule. I think the family does not like conspicuous consumption. And it's too easy to get private jet. And at the outset, I was jokingly saying, yeah, lesson learned, next time go private or go direct.
Right.
But even then, that's just luck. If you're driving your car and one day you don't make that right-hand turn and you avoid an accident, or you get into an accident, that's fate. Yeah. So you never know when the meteor's coming. My concern for her on the personal level was her health, is her health. And that has caused me stress from day one. The last thing we want is a medical incident on Canadian soil. There's no coming back from that. And that's why I'm hoping that we're in the last 100 days, 120 days of her time in Canada. Her husband has been visiting here. I watched them. I'm really happy he was able to make it. But she has a life.
What is her restrictions? Can she go throughout the Lower Mainland of Vancouver, or is she confined to her property, or is it more like she's allowed to see a doctor, come home, a lawyer, come home?
Well, she does have liberty. She is free to go pretty much all around Vancouver and places within certain hours of the day. And it's subject to continuous 24-hour electronic monitoring and security paid by her. So you're talking $1,000 a day minimum to abide by her terms and conditions. And she's been burning about, I've calculated, $8,000 to $10,000 an hour in court. So it's a high cost. It's a very high cost for the family. But what price liberty? I hope it never happens again.
What if a person didn't have that financial?
There you go. I
was
waxing prolific on exactly that question for months with international media and our domestic. And the fact in Canada is this. It's the wealthy, the ultra wealthy, that have the means to take issues to the highest level in court. And these issues grant freedoms and liberties for decades in future to everyone. So the wealthy plow the road for rights and freedoms for ordinary Canadians. And so, yes, she's privileged, but look at the results. If there's a charter decision that says to law enforcement, you have to respect an immediate court order, or you can't frustrate charter rights like this, literally tens of millions of people will benefit from that. She pays the physical price, the monetary penalty, but in the fullness of time, her work would have helped tens of millions of Canadians in the end in the judicial world.
That's very interesting. Look at that.
Yeah,
Cyrus, any more questions?
No, I just, Richard, I just thank you so much for coming on the show and really providing us your insight. This has just been a really, I mean, Alex and I have analyzed this case a lot. We've done live streams. We've invited other guests to collaborate with us. I think it's great to have somebody of your, experience level, and knowledge to come onto the show and just provide some really insights, because I know, again, like I opened the show up with, this is, U.S. and China, the two, biggest countries right now that are battling out. It's happening in our backyard here in Vancouver. It's been interesting to see, even for me as an immigrant. I'm an immigrant to Canada. My wife is Canadian. I'm immigrating here at the moment, but I think it's an important case because, like Alex had said, we do have this, we have the rule of law. We have these certain policies that, define Canadian and as American as well. I mean, you have to have this judicial system, and it has to work, because this is our, liberty, that we're talking about. This is what makes Western countries Western, and this is what we go about preaching around the world, why we are, such great countries. So I think it is important that we're going to get this result. And I definitely feel, I think I'm going to make a call that she gets released within the first 100 days of Joe Biden's presidency. That's what I personally feel.
I think the tonsils are out. Where's the ice cream?
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely.
I think my prediction is pretty close to that. I would say Chinese New Year, around that area. What a pleasure to have you on the show today. Really, it's quite an honor. We really thank you very much.
Everybody, if you've made it to this point in the video, I want to thank you very much for your support, and I want to thank you for taking time out of your day to spend it with me here on YouTube. If you haven't already, go ahead and click that subscribe button, and I want to thank you for your continued support. And we have some very big plans for 2021. We're going to be continuing bringing in amazing guests like this to really help more people around the world truly understand China. Everybody, again, my name is Cyrus Jansen. Thank you again for your continued support, and we'll see you in the next video.